I'm a product manager. Like, we should get a gathering of product people together. We started running a conference in 2012, the first conference in London. And then that grew and grew and grew. And it became eventually 5 conferences, as well as product tanks in 300 different cities around the world. So eventually it became the world's largest community and series of events for product people.
From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Dhanda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Jana. And before we jump in, I'd love to know which superpower you'd like to bring to this particular episode.
I love this question. Let's talk about connecting the dots.
Oh,
yeah.
Connecting the dots. I love that. I love that. It reminds me of that game as a kid, those puzzles, those dot-to-dot puzzles where you're not quite sure what it's going to be until you finish it off.
Yeah. And I think as a product person, it's really important to have that wider view and to be able to stand back and then be able to say, okay, well, what if this and this, or this person and this person needs to talk? Or if we apply this tech to this problem, or apply this solution to this type of way of tackling things, right? I think there's a lot of dot connecting that I think naturally happens with product people. But if I were to say that's a superpower that somebody could have, that's one that I'll bring to the table.
And talk about product management. So that's a passion of mine. And I know you've certainly been in that space for a while as well. So how did you end up doing what you do? Was it by accident? Was it planned? Like, how much of that would you say was down to kind of career choices that you made consciously?
Oh, I don't think I've ever made a career choice in my life. No, that's not true. But I think, like a lot of other product people in my cohort, back when product people sort of fell out of trees and were plucked out of wherever they were doing whatever else, I fell into it accidentally. Before being a product manager, I'd had sort of a mishmash of different things that I guess sort of led me to becoming a good product manager and being good at connecting the dots, right? So I had not a career. I had some jobs in retail. I did some work in sales. I ended up as a webmaster at one point in time. I ended up doing some publicity work and marketing type stuff. And these are all just sort of bitty jobs, really, bits and pieces here and there. And then ended up as I guess the closest thing, I was like an account manager, customer success manager. It wasn't called that, but that was the gist of it, at a tech company that didn't have product people. And so there's no one else there to really champion the customers and bring their insights to the developers. But because I'd had some experience working with web stuff, being a webmaster, and because I had some experience, in retail and customer facing roles, I was good at talking to the customers and with the developers at the same time. And so I was made like this IT contact type person. And then eventually, after pushing for a promotion to the project management office, that's where I saw myself climbing up the ladder of this company. There weren't any openings there, but my boss did say, I want to make you a product manager. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. But what is it? And frankly, he didn't really know either. Like, this is a company that had never had a product manager. They were a public facing tech company that had been going for 10 years that was kind of making money, by accident, it was churning it out. But they'd never really stopped to have product team or anything like that. So they plucked me out of support-ish type role. They plucked a developer out and put him in a product role and had the two of us work together, and we just figured it out from there.
You mentioned there, he didn't know what a product manager really was. So what is a product manager? I know it's obvious from the title, but or is it? Because it's one of those jobs that I think covers a lot. and it's probably quite difficult to really define it, but I'd love to hear your definition of it.
And actually, I don't think it's obvious from the title, right? Because it's not even obvious what a product is. I mean, I work on a product now that's actually more of a service. I mean, the clue's in the name. It's software as a service. And so, it's hard to define exactly what it is we're building and what it is we're managing. And you're not really managing people necessarily as a product manager, but sometimes you are. But really, I define the product manager as you're sitting at the intersection of what the customers want and what the business needs you to deliver value on and what's technically possible. And trying to, guide the company and the team around you and orchestrate those decisions and those actions to create the best version of your product or service that can go out.
If the role then requires lots of diverse skills, like what are some of those skills, would you say, for people to be really successful in that role?
Yeah, I mean, going back to my old cohort, a lot of product people assumed, and this wasn't coming from nowhere, this is because the requirements for the job were things like you needed to have a computer science degree. You need to, be a developer who, fell out of development into product management. And I think that was indicative of, tech and how product was built back then. But there's much more of an acknowledgement of product management as a soft skills type role, where actually it's not about whether you can code it or not. It's about whether you can work with the people who can code it and explain what needs to be done so that the right things are built. And it's not just explain what you think needs to be built. It's about understanding what should be built based on having conversations with the right people. And by the right people, I mean different stakeholders, everything from your customers through to people in your company to understand, what do the customers want? What kind of problems do they have? How are they solving it today? What's your competition looking like? What's valuable for the company as well? What does the company need you to deliver on? And, you've got all these inputs, all these different places you can go get information, and you've got to synthesize that and ultimately lay out the steps of what needs to be done, and then, break those down into smaller and smaller pieces so that the development team can actually build the right stuff. So it's a, big, hairy job, depending on, what your particular scope is within that. Leaves a lot of room for the product manager to be creative. But ultimately, it's a soft skills role where it's about asking the right questions and communicating with people, communicating what has been done, what can't be done, why something is happening in a particular way, getting people on board with stuff. So storytelling, so that people pull in the same direction and can work autonomously rather than you having to break everything down into tiny pieces and spoon feed it to them, which isn't the most effective use of your time for sure. A dose of tenaciousness as well. I think product managers just need to learn to fail at things over and over and over again so that they can figure out what things work and what things don't work. The role of a product manager is to experiment a lot. And by experimenting, you're assuming that some of these things that you're putting forwards, some of these decisions that you make for the product aren't going to be the right ones. And you've got to learn to take a knock and go, oh, well, we tried that. Good thing we didn't spend too long on it because by design, we made it nice and simple. And so we're going to turn around and try something else. And you just got to have, a thick skin, a level of tenaciousness that allows you to crack on with stuff and rally everybody else around it as well.
I was thinking about in today's world where if somebody wants to break into the field of product management, how could they do that? Like, if I think about my background, I came from, I was a software developer for about 2 years, very short career. I'm glad it was because I wasn't the best. And then I moved more into business analysis, and that really got me talking to people, got me out there, building up those soft skills, as you mentioned, and then eventually went into product ownership. And now I would say my role is predominantly focused around product management. But like you, it was never a path I had defined for myself up front. It was something that just happened organically. I'm just thinking about people today, if somebody is thinking about the career of a product manager, like what might be some tips for those folks? Is there a well-defined way for somebody to come into the role, or is it very much about just being in the right place at the right time?
You know what? Wonderfully, there isn't like a defined role. There are some common paths, like flunked out developer is a really common path. And I say that in the best way, right? Not everybody's suited to just being the person doing the coding. Sometimes they want to move upstream and spend more time with the customers and defining the problem. And so a lot of people come from the development side. Others will come from, like I came more than anything from the customer facing customer success, customer service type side, where it's about saying, well, I want to be able to help these customers. So it's not about just, opening and closing tickets and saying nice things. It's about, what can I actionably do? And I can work with the development team to actually, make changes in the product. And, there's other paths as well, coming in from the marketing sides or sales side or business side, people coming in from MBAs. MBA is probably the most expensive path in, and certainly not recommended if that's, your starting point. But definitely, is one way to get a foot in. Honestly, if you're looking to move into product management, take a look at where you are now and draw a path to it. Like, do you have a product manager on your team? Go figure out what they do and figure out if there's anything you can do to help them, right? Can you sit alongside them and help with research? Can you act as, even a pseudo product owner or do some QA work? One of the first product managers that I trained up, and he's now a product leader in his own right, but this is going back when I was a head of product. He started off as an intern as a QA person and was great at doing QA, but wanted to get more hands-on into the product world, but cut his teeth doing QA and just learning the product and learning how people interact with this thing. And so, yeah, that's a great way to get in. So if you're already working for a company that builds a product, then just cozy up to the product person and find out, what things you can take off their plate until you're kind of doing product-y stuff. And keeping in mind that product management is a wide-ranging set of activities. So, as you are crafting your CV and talking about, what it is that you've done in the past and using that to upsell yourself to the next company, take a look at what you've done and highlight things that are product management like. And there's probably a lot of things that a product manager would do that you have also done. So highlight all those things. Just because you weren't called a product manager doesn't mean you can't say you haven't done product management. And if you're not in a company and you don't have the opportunity to work alongside or with a product or anything like that, then create your own, right? Even if it's just a hack project that is made out of pieces of paper or no code, low code type stuff, right? But the product manager, if you got nothing else to work with, you're going to get out there and identify a problem, identify a group of people, talk to those people, log your research, come up with insights about that research, and then craft a product and iterate that product and share your learnings on it. That can all be done as like a side project, like a school type project. You could package that up and say, this is what I've done in my own time just to practice doing product management type stuff, and keep that in your portfolio so that when somebody says, hey, we're hiring a product manager, we're looking for somebody junior to join, you're not going in there saying, I want to be a product manager. You can say, I have done this cool side project. I did this one and this one. What do you think? And you can show them something, your way of thinking. And so that can be a way of getting ahead of some of the other people who might not have bothered to try it and have just heard good things about product management.
I love that, because I kind of did that by mistake in a way as well. I set up a couple of little side hustles way back in the day. Not
Yeah.
many people know this.
What were your side hustles?
Yeah, it was a time when music was on CDs and CDs were,
Good times.
and I contacted a team over in India, and I had this idea. I wanted to sell Indian music online, and there was a local shop that I used to go to, and they agreed to supply me. And I thought, right, I'm going to put a website up and list all their titles. And then if I sell one, I'll go to the shop and I'll buy from them.
I love it. That's so MVP.
It was a just-in-time approach, right?
Yeah.
So I had zero stock at home. And it was amazing because the website at the time, there weren't many off-the-shelf e-commerce platforms that you could just use. And so I actually helped the team to build the site for me, and they charged me some money at the time. So it was my money being spent. And I gave that a go, and then I learned a huge amount from that. But I didn't realize it at the time. I was treating it more just as a side passion for me. But you're so right. When you delve into kind of a little bit of entrepreneurship, and it doesn't have to be spending loads of money on building a website. I mean, you could open up a store on eBay or something, and it's still you kind of utilizing those product management muscles, isn't it? And then I think for me, the biggest scary part of moving into product management was having the business acumen and being worried about profit and loss of the product and the revenue. Because up until that point, I feel like my head was below the parapet. I would have deadlines as a business analyst, as a product owner, but I was never responsible for the revenue of a product in the way I am now. And that was really scary for me because I didn't want to let anyone down. And when you start thinking about the numbers you're talking about, it's thousands of pounds that your product can generate. It became really scary. So that was probably my biggest battle, was coming to terms with that and dealing with that pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think that's somewhere that product managers need to make sure that they're very aware of, is the revenue impact of their products. I know a lot of, I mean, it's less of an issue now. I think product people in the last few years have become more hyper aware of the impact that they have on revenue and growth. But I know certainly over the years, we've seen lots of product people more focused on, creating customer delight and, usage and making their customers happy and that sort of stuff. All really great aims, but if it's not helping the business, then it's not a great product. It's got to serve the business needs. Ultimately, as a product person, you've got to think about the needs of the business first. But pretty much any business that you're going to join, unless it's like a monopoly, the product is going to have to meet the needs of the customers in order to meet the business, right? But you need to draw that line between it, right? Here's an example. If you just created something that was serving the needs of your customers and made your customers happy and answered all their questions, you'd make it free. That would make everyone happy. Your usage stats would go through the roof, right? Cool. But obviously it wouldn't be sustainable for the business because, you can't just give everything away for free. So you've got to find that balance. And, revenue is just another number. I think why it's scary is because people attribute, scary, they hang a lot of stress on the revenue figures or on the fact that it's money. But also it's because it's a lagging indicator, right? There's not many things, or not many products in the world that you can work on where you make a change that has a direct impact on the revenue. Usually you have an impact on something that then influences a user to do something, which then influences them to buy something, and your revenue goes up, right? Whereas some things that we measure as product people are more closely connected, right? It's about their usage stats or things like that, right? So it's closer to that, and they're easier to measure. They're less tied up in the emotional side of money as a measure. But also, I think, revenue is one of those things that not everyone in the business is comfortable talking about, and, what the business needs for the company. And I think we should get over that. As a product person, we're really good at talking to customers and understanding their needs and figuring out what delights them. And we should be treating our stakeholders, our senior stakeholders, as stakeholders as well, as like customers as well, basically, right? Doing customer discovery and asking them questions around, what sort of problems they need to solve and how they're being measured and that sort of thing. And, figuring out what they're talking about, because it's not just going to be flat revenue as a figure. There's going to be other numbers and metrics and other things like this that you're going to need to gauge. And so, what's important? Is it, lifetime value? Is it, keeping a cost per acquisition down? Is it, value of each customer? Is it number of customers? Is it, value of each contract? What is it that drives the business? What is it that drives the execs who are running the business? What's keeping them awake at night? What numbers do they dream about? Understand those, and then hone your product strategy in with the business strategy. And that should tie it more closely to what the business needs. And yes, ultimately, it probably ties down to, make more money, but you need to really, truly understand what that means for your business. And you do that by doing discovery on your stakeholders, including the ones more senior to you.
And talking about discovery, as you know, you and I were chatting the last time we spoke, and I mentioned product discovery, and it's something that I'm really passionate about and want to delve into a little bit more. So just for anyone listening who doesn't know what product discovery is, could you just give us a quick overview and any tips of how do you do good product discovery? What are some of the things that you should watch out for?
Yeah, so it's the process of uncovering customer needs or stakeholder needs, and testing assumptions and validating ideas before jumping into execution, right? I think it's so key for teams to embrace this. And the thing is, product people have been embracing this for years. And the idea of discovery sort of enveloping this process is, it's not new, but more relatively new. But we've been doing discovery for longer than I've been calling it discovery, I think. But the important thing is making sure that you understand who it is that you're building for and what it is that they need before committing more resources than you're willing to give up to find out whether you're actually on the right path or not.
Yeah, 100%. And I find a lot of teams that I've worked with in the past, especially on the agile side, where we're building backlogs and we're trying to sort of get things out the door, it's assumed that those ideas are going to be good ideas. And so we rely on subject matter experts and then product owners to tell the teams what those ideas are and prioritize them.
Mm-hmm.
When actually there's a whole piece of work that needs to be done before that, because for many ideas, they could be quite risky. We just don't know if they're going to be worth the investment. So I think that's where you're saying it's good to do that experimentation.
And most ideas aren't good ideas, and that's okay, right? I think it's actually quite freeing when you start thinking of them as not ideas, but actually as experiments, right? Things that you might try in order to move the needle. And you should start by first identifying what needle you want to move, what problem you're trying to solve. And first of all, not falling in love with the first idea, the first experiment you could try, right? So, well, this is one thing we could do. If this is one thing we could do, why are we doing it? That's your problem. All right. And that's, how we're going to measure it and that sort of thing. Work that out and then work back down and say, well, how else might we do this? Right. That was one way, but that actually kind of expensive, right? It's going to take 3 weeks to build it and it's going to take, X amount of dollars to pull that off. Is there anything cheaper we could do? Anything faster we could do? Rather than building it, could we do an experiment like just a survey? Asking some customers, mining some existing customer feedback that we have to get some insights. And that might be a cheaper, faster way of discovering as to whether you're on the right track. And sometimes the best way of doing it is, in fact, breaking new ground, coding something new. But oftentimes it's building a smaller version of something rather than trying to build the whole thing all at once, and wasting sometimes weeks or months or even years in some companies' cases just to see as to whether what they built was the right thing.
And I know you have an amazing story because you were one of the original founders of a global community, Mind the Product.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then I'd love to delve into that journey and even how you performed some of your discovery, because it absolutely went huge and you've had great success with it. So I'd love to hear a few of your insights about how did you go about building this product, which was this community?
So Mind the Product started off as myself and my co-founder, Simon. I met him at an event for Twitter people in London, because I used to go to all the different tech events, and I'd go to events for developers, and I'd go to events for social media people, and I'd go to events for marketing people, and go to events for designers and entrepreneurs and that sort of stuff. But there were no events for product people. And I'd been chewing on this idea of running what was called a product camp in London, because I'd heard about this thing in the States, and there wasn't one in the UK or in Europe even. And so I met somebody, met Simon at this gathering, and I said to him, "Wait, you're a product manager. I'm a product manager. Like, we should get a gathering of product people together." And he was on board with the idea. And so we started cracking on with putting together some plans for this. And as we were putting this together, somebody who was in Simon's network pointed out that they knew of somebody else, another product manager, who's starting up something called Product Tank, which is very similar, like adjacent, right? So same market, but different sort of style. Whereas Product Camp was going to be a full day weekend event. Product Tank would be more of an after work evenings thing that would happen on a more regular basis. Cool. So we decided to, long story short, put the two together. And originally Mind the Product was the name of the blog that we had, so we could talk about the stuff we were learning from the events we were running and seeing out there in the community as we were putting this together. But eventually we just saw more and more people turning up to this conference, more and more people asking for more interesting speakers. And it sort of snowballed from there. And we started running a conference in 2012, the first conference in London. And then that grew and grew and grew. And it became eventually 5 conferences, as well as product tanks in 300 different cities around the world. So eventually became the world's largest community and series of events for product people. So it started off as a tiny, tiny little thing and then just got totally out of hand. It was great fun.
That's phenomenal. I mean, I'm reading the book you recommended as well, Meet Up to Millions, I think.
Meet Up to Millions, yes. That was written by our co-founder, James Mays, who joined us at the point, really a key inflection point as we started really scaling it and commercializing it. And he helped basically turn it into what it was, making sure that we had some really great partners behind it and allowed it to turn into something that could become as big as it was.
And as you were going on that journey, Jana, like what were some of the product management skills you were using as you were going down this path? Because I guess you've probably had to pivot and change direction a few times along that journey. So how did that go for you?
Is making it up as you go along a skill? No, it's a really good point. I mean, the thing is when you're running events are the antithesis of lean, right? So what we were doing in our day jobs was, trying to get to the point where we were delivering on a weekly basis and iterating and learning from our customers and then changing the product the next week when we had a new chance to release. Events are the absolute opposite, right? I mean, when you run an event, if something goes wrong, the day of the event. If there's not enough lunch, or a banner falls down or whatever, you can't fix it that day, right? You've just got to fix it for the next year, basically. So it was the opposite of lean. But what we did do, we made sure that we would have just lots and lots of communication with our customers and de-risk it as much as possible going into it. And just get bags of learnings every time we did a conference. And de-risk things by, putting out early bird tickets and, testing the waters before we plunked down anything that was too big for our own boot, sort of thing. So lots of things that we could learn from the way we're building software and applying that to the event world. But a lot of it was, figuring it out as we went along, and connecting the dots, and a lot of tenaciousness, just continually going. I remember somebody asking at one point in time, they said, well, we're building a community over here. How do you sell out your tickets? How do they make the tickets go so fast? Right? Because we were like the Woodstock of, or the Glastonbury of product management, right? The tickets would just go so quickly. And you know what? Honestly, it was because we started small, and every month we ran an event, and every month we just turned up, and it was hard work, right? Like some of these events were like 50 people, and someone had to be there to open the doors and make sure that the beers were paid for, and make sure that, somebody had, put the slides together, and somebody had told the speakers to be in the right place. And the hard graft work that goes with each of the things, each of the events, and just repeat that for several years continuously. And then what you have is a whole pile of people who are just, fans who just want to be at your event. And so when you tell them about the big event, absolutely, they're going to buy your thing. So, the top tip was start 10 years prior and then build it up slowly. And that was just a lot of tenaciousness, I think.
This conversation's come at a really timely point for myself because, as I think I mentioned to you separately, I co-founded a community for visual thinkers called the Visual Jam. And the last 3 years or so, we've been running events every month, absolutely free. And although ours are more virtual because we're in a slightly different world, different time at the moment. But we foolishly decided that we would put on a conference for later this year.
Yay. Tell me about that. How's it going?
Oh my God. Wow. So we are probably doing everything wrong, but we're just doing it at the moment.
Making it up as you go along is a legit skill.
Very much so. We first secured the venue. We thought, okay, that's probably the first thing we should do. So we've secured that, which is Aston University. So we're ex-alumni, and we managed to get all of that secured. We've put out the tickets, and they're surprisingly selling. So that's good. And we're not really doing that much advertising at the moment. And the bits that we've really got to nail now are actually finding some speakers. So, if you bought a ticket, don't worry, we're on it. We're gonna figure this out. But we're iterating, and we're hopefully, before we obviously get to the event, we'll have a full lineup of speakers. But we're just in that period at the moment where we're figuring out, who would be great speakers and what lessons can we learn from previous events? Because this is an event which has been running for a number of years, and we've been very fortunate that the originator of the event, Mr. Mike Rohde, has given us the privilege of being able to put it on this year. So that's happening on the 4th of July. So yeah, it's going. But
that's fantastic.
We've got to really knuckle down now.
You know what? You're doing the right thing, taking your time with speaker curation. I mean, when we launched Mind the Product events, when we sold the first tickets, we often, pretty much never told people who the lineup was. The lineup would be announced later. And the curation for events would sometimes take years. It would start years in advance, because what we would try to do is find the right mix of speakers for the event. And I don't know whether yours is, but ours was a single track event. And by single track, it means you can only fit, 8 to 10 people over the course of the day. And that's actually great because you don't have that FOMO of like, oh, do I go to this one or this one? And then people end up going to neither one. I'm not a big fan of those conferences that have 500 speakers, but none of them are actually any good. I'd rather go to one where, they've properly curated the 10 people I need to hear from and put them in the order that's going to tell a great story over the course of the day, so that at the end of the day, I can hang out with the, 500 people who turned up and have a conversation with them about these interesting 10 stories that I heard and, take away my learnings and feel like I didn't miss anything. And so picking out the speakers was an incredibly daunting task because you wanted to find the right mix of, big names, interesting stories. Since product is a mixture of, customer focus, business focus, tech focus, design focus, UX, a bit of everything. You wanted to have like different areas represented. And then you wanted to make sure you had a diverse lineup. You want to make sure that you had, a good story arc throughout the whole thing. And sometimes, the big speaker names you had to plan way in advance because you'd say, hey, our event is in September. And they're like, oh, nope, I'm in this country in September, not yours. And so you'd have to plan them for the following September and, kind of try to play Tetris over the course of multiple years with the speaker lineups. So I don't envy you, but I think you're doing it absolutely right to take it slow and find the right people for the audience.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's reassuring. Thank you for that, Jana.
Yeah.
I've been focused on the Saturday night entertainment because we're going to do an evening of entertainment. And I'm just trying to book my nephew to be the DJ that evening because he's an amazing DJ. So we're going to have
cool.
Evening of music and Bhangra dancing and lots of other things. So,
one of the things that we had a one of our community members, a product manager, product leader, was also an amazing DJ. And so he became the official after party DJ for several years, to the point where we'd like fly him out to the different cities and be like, you are going to be our guest of honor and also do some DJing for us. It's going to be great.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I've actually bought myself some decks. You can't really see them behind me, but I'm going through my second midlife crisis.
Nice. It's a great hobby.
I've just started my journey on that, and I don't think I'd ever be as good as that. But it's just more just for me to kind of bust out a couple of tunes every now and again.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I know, Jana, then beyond the community, you've then gone on this whole new path, which was the path of entrepreneurship. And I know you're the founder of ProdPad or co-founder.
Okay. The founder of ProdPad.
There we go.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about that? Like, what is ProdPad?
Yeah.
And again, just some of your experiences as you went down that journey.
Absolutely. So ProdPad is something that I co-founded with Simon, the same one who I started Mind the Product with. And so ProdPad is software for product people. And we built it because, we were product managers ourselves and we didn't have tools to do our own jobs. And so started hacking away and creating something that would solve our problems, and then started sharing it with the product people around us. We've seen so many amazing changes in the product management sphere over the years. I mean, when we first started building this thing, product managers were it was quite a lone role, and you were very outnumbered by the rest of your team. And nowadays we're seeing, the growth of the chief product officer and the more lately the growth of the product operations role. And so more and more teams are investing in great tools to help make sure that they are keeping everything on the same page, and that they've got tools to help their teams make the best decisions and keep organized around the work that they're doing. So ultimately, it's a tool to manage your high-level strategy. So, what's your big picture vision? What's your strategy? What's on your roadmap? Where are you now? Where are you going next? Where are you going later? And then publish versions of that roadmap. But then also to track the more tactical work. So what experiments do you have in flow? What ideas do you have in your backlog? What feedback have you heard from your customers? And so it combines this and allows you to understand and make the better decisions around what should go into your, what you should build next for your product, so you don't build the wrong thing. And it connects to your development tools. So if you're using Jira or Trello or Azure DevOps or whatever, it allows you to sync back and forth those tools so the developers get the right information and you don't have that duplication. But we've also underpinned it with AI. So now it's a tool that allows you to say, well, here's our vision, here's what our customers are asking, here's what we've tried, what we haven't tried. And, ask this thing questions saying, based on what's on our roadmap, is this idea a good fit? Or could you summarize everything from that set of customers and tell me if there's anything on the roadmap I should tell them about? So some really powerful use cases you have once you've got an AI that understands the context of what it is that you are trying to build, as well as is tuned into what good product management practice is.
Oh, fantastic. And as you made that transition into building this product, which is your product, like what were some of the learning points from that experience for you as a product manager? Was it any different to the stuff you'd done before, or has it been completely new in some respect?
Yeah, every day is a learning day, right? Again, making stuff up as I go along, I think has been a core trend. One of the first things that we learned while building ProdPad. So we were product managers. And so we made this assumption, this bad assumption that, we knew what we needed. And we built a version of ProdPad that actually suited myself and Simon's process. We were working for two different companies. And so we built something that suited our process really well. And were stopped in our tracks when we started sharing it with other product managers and realized that we are not our market, right? We should have stopped and done discovery. And we didn't. We wasted a lot of time coding up a version of ProdPad that had to be thrown out. I remember throwing out literally months of code and going, oh, well, this is junk. What we need is a version of ProdPad that's going to suit this wider market. And so as we built that, as we started embracing the product discovery side of things and actually talking to our users, ProdPad's now built based on the feedback of literally thousands of product teams. Is built on the best practices of, those thousands of teams. It's now much more powerful and much more adopted and loved. Whereas, the first version, people sort of went, this doesn't fit.
I got you. Oh, that's really interesting because it's almost like taking your own biases into the decision-making process and then finding out.
And that's actually what ProdPad does. It removes biases, right? So now that I'm not the product person, right? We've hired a product person who's a much better product person than I ever was as a product person, which is great and intimidating, but I love it. Because it puts me in the position of, I'm the CEO, right? And I used to have a CEO back when I was a product person who would come in with ideas, and I would have to figure out, where these ideas go on the roadmap and what to do with them. Well, now ProdPad helps to make sure that whenever I've got an idea, it's not like me throwing a grenade into the room and it just blows everything up. I know where I can put it, but also I've got visibility on, where this sits. And I can also help make sure that the overarching goals are clear with the objectives, but also give autonomy to my product person to make those calls themselves, right? So it's actually a really powerful tool that works for both sides. And I've been on both sides of it now, which is great.
And you mentioned AI there. So I was intrigued to know, are you excited about AI coming into this world of product management, or are you a little bit afraid?
No, I'm super excited, right? This is an incredible tool that is, it's already changing how we think and how we work and our patterns. Building for AI is really interesting. It's kind of like we're building, like mobile apps in 2007, right? We're still discovering the best patterns. People are still figuring out, whether you tap or swipe or whatever. Just like with AI, people are figuring out, well, do you put buttons with sparkles on, or do you have a typey prompt thing? Surely we can do more with this than just chatbots. And so it's actually really fun to explore these different patterns and, see what's working, what isn't working. But certainly is a new area and a new level of difficulty to break ground in, sort of this unknown, but also incredibly powerful to see what can be pulled off. I stop myself on a regular basis when we're using and deploying and showing off our Copilot tool. our AI tool in ProdPad, and just go, can we just stop and appreciate how amazing this thing is? Like, if you had told me a year ago that I could do this, I'd have gone like, no way. Right. It's just nuts how far we've come with it and what we can do with it. Right. And now it's just things like, customers will come to us with interesting use cases, and I'll just type it in and be like, I'm sure it'll be able to pull it off. And it does. It doesn't disappoint, and it delights in surprising ways. But also it can be interesting because with AI, generative AI, every time you use it, it comes out slightly different. It's always good, usually, but it's different. And so it's hard to test for. You can't set up your classic unit tests, right? It's a new way of thinking about stuff. And so you've got to make sure you've got, good quality data, good quality prompts, and a good understanding as to how people are going to use it. Make sure that you've considered a wider array of things than you would than if you were just building a simple CRUD app, for sure.
I love those little quirks about AI. I've found when I'm doing some brainstorming and just trying to get some ideas out of ChatGPT, one day it'll give me great ideas, the next day it won't give me very good ideas. And it's almost like, do you catch it on a good day or a bad day? There's that side of it. And then here's an interesting one. How polite are you to your AI, Jana? Because I got told off by my daughter the other day because I was being so polite. And I was like, oh, thank you for that, ChatGPT. Could you do this? Could you do that? And my daughter was like, you're treating it like a person. What are you doing? And I was like, you've got to be kind to your AI. Otherwise, it might start giving you bad advice.
And honestly, I don't think it's about whether it's going to give you bad advice or not. I think it's just good practice to be kind to agents, whether they are human or AI or not, because eventually we're not going to be able to tell the difference. Why would you go out of your way to be ratty to some tech? I am polite to my AI. And it's not because I've got a rational belief or a real belief that, there's going to be an uprising and they're going to come after me. But, I think it's human nature, and it just, feels better when you're being nicer to other people and things. In the same way that I say nice things to my cats. Like, they don't know that I'm what I'm saying, but, why am I doing it? Because I'm nice, I think. I think it's just a human quirk, and I wouldn't want us to lose that. I don't want us to lose our humanity just because we're not necessarily always dealing with humans.
Yeah, I was chatting to the Amazon bot the other day because I was trying to return some stuff, and it says it's a bot. So the first thing I did was I said, can you just put me through to a real person? And the bot tried so hard. It was like, oh, but I can answer so many questions. I'm sure I can help you. I was like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to a real human being.
Did you give the bot a try? Did you give it a benefit of the doubt?
Unfortunately, I didn't on this occasion because in the past it had failed me on that same type of query. So I was like, I just need to talk to a person. But it tried. It tried to hold on to me as much as it could. And then eventually I was like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, so as we approach the end of this episode, John, I can't believe how quick the time has flown. I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions, one of my questions to end the show, which is, if you could have any superpower to abolish something in the world of work, what would that be?
Oh, abolish anything in the world of work. Can I get rid of meetings that could have just been an email or Slack message? Now, the thing is, I say this, I love meetings when they are productive and when you've got a clear idea as to what it is that you're what problem you're trying to discuss or what the agenda is. But, ongoing meetings where you've just all turned up to give a status on something and nothing moves forward, I think we should just get rid of those.
Brilliant. And you're not the first person to say that on this show.
Bet not. No.
It's definitely a popular one, that one. So I think we're on to something. Well, Jana, if people want to get a hold of you and they want to know more about ProdPad, the amazing platform that you've put out there, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I'm easy to find. Please come find me on LinkedIn or wherever you can find me on whatever social platform is popular today. I'll probably try to hang out there every once in a while. I'm Janna Bastow. I'm the only Janna Bastow out there as far as I know. So I'm easy to find. Come say hi and let me know where it is that you found me. And also come check out ProdPad. So it's prodpad.com and drop me an email, Jana@prodpad.com. Say hi. Let me know if you're giving it a try and give us feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, amazing. Well, Jana, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you spending your evening with me on this episode. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been great.
It's the end of another episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please do connect with me via LinkedIn and drop me a message and let me know your favorite takeaways from the episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Superpower School newsletter so that you can be notified of all future episodes. Simply visit the website www.superpowers.school. Thank you once again.